Leadership today, especially within the federal workforce, is being tested more than ever before. Angela Bailey, former Chief Human Capital Officer at the Department of Homeland Security and founder and CEO of Ananda Life, joined host Shane Canfield, CEO of WAEPA, to discuss continual growth in leadership and how truly caring about those you lead can elevate a team's dynamic. Listen to Angie's insights about how being a lifelong learner can positively impact your leadership style.
Hello, I'm WAEPA CEO Shane Canfield, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Lessons in Leadership. I'm honored to be joined by Angie Bailey, founder and CEO of Ananda Life. Angie has a remarkable career in public service, beginning as a GS2 clerk typist with the Social Security Administration, and over the next 40 years, Angie steadily worked her way up through the government, ultimately becoming the Chief Human Capital Officer at the Department of Homeland Security. She's been recognized with presidential rank awards by 2 administrations for leadership, innovation, dedication, and commitment to the country. Angie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shane. What a pleasure to be here.
Angie, you've made quite a name for yourself as a leader in the federal workforce. Who was the first person you remember looking up to as a leader, and what about them inspired you?
I often think about this because, sometimes we think of the people that we look up to the most as being somebody that throughout our career has, been at the highest levels and all. But I've got to go back to honestly, whenever I was 10 years old. And I remember I really wanted to play Little League baseball on a boys team. I was the only girl. And interestingly, it was the women who would keep saying to me that, no, I couldn't play. And then one day, whenever I was there to sign up yet again, there was this guy, his name was Delbert Beiser. And I remember he had like red hair and he had wad of tobacco in his mouth and greasy overalls and everything. And he said, I'll take her on my team. And, just looking back on that, there's so many leadership lessons and things that I just really admire about him. And actually, I thought about throughout my entire career. He took a chance on somebody he didn't know. He put aside whatever conscious or unconscious biases that he might have had about having a girl on a team. He treated me the same. Whether, if I wasn't performing, I got benched just like the boys. I got no special treatment. And he was just really honest with me, and he just included me in everything. And so looking back on it, really, it was Delbert Beiser, our local mechanic in our little small village, that was, I think, my inspiration for going on to, I hope, become the leader, that I wanted to be.
I'd say half of the guests on this podcast have had similar stories where they reach back to either childhood or young adulthood. And I think as leaders, it's really incumbent upon us to keep that in mind, that what we say and do, especially in the younger ages, really can have a lifelong impact. How would you describe your leadership style, and how's that developed over time?
I would say that the one word that describes my leadership style is that I care. I guess that's more than one word, but I care. I've always cared about the mission. I've always cared about the people. I've always cared, about making sure that they had what they needed, or that they were developing the way, that they aspired to develop. And I tried to take this approach of not treating people the way I wanted to be treated, but instead treat people the way they want to be treated. And I think that really kind of developed over my career. I started out just like most leaders do, where it's very results driven. It's all about the bottom line. You need to make sure that you get everything accomplished because, that's what everybody's looking for, the goals, the metrics, etc. But I think as you mature and you go along, you start to your point, you draw back on those early childhood days or early adult, whenever you're a young adult, and you say, I think that there's a little bit more to this than just the bottom line. And so over time, I really began to, I think, see a much bigger picture and the entire ecosystem, if you will, and how the people themselves fit into all of this. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, it was all about the people. And so I think my maturity allowed me to then shift and focus more on the people than so much on results and bottom line.
You've been recognized with 2 presidential rank awards, 2 different administrations. You founded your own company, Tell us a little bit more about your background from the beginning and how did that lead you to where you are today?
Well, it's kind of interesting, like you said, that I started out as a GS2 of Social Security Administration. I mean, what I really wanted to be was a criminal prosecuting attorney. That was absolutely my dream. I sometimes joke and say what I really wanted to be was a mafia don, but that wasn't going to work out. So, had to be a criminal prosecuting attorney. But, I had to get a job to pay for college. It wasn't in the cards that I was going to be able to go to college without a job. So I applied at the Social Security Administration, at the unemployment office, and lo and behold, I got a job at Social Security. I didn't even know it was federal, to be honest. From there, I went to the Department of Defense, and I found this career field called Labor and Employee Relations. And honestly, it was as close as I was going to get to being a criminal prosecuting attorney. I didn't go on to be a criminal prosecuting attorney, but I went on courtesy of Department of Defense to get both my bachelor's and my master's in leadership, because the whole study of leadership, I just find incredibly fascinating. From historical to current times, it's just something that's just really fascinated me. And so I would say I'm a lifelong learner of leadership. And then I would say some of the other things that got me maybe where I am today is I never really said no to anything. If people asked me to take on a new challenge, even if I wasn't sure I was going to be successful at it, I would say, you know what, not sure this is going to work out, but more than happy to give it a try. And it always worked out. But I think giving things a try and just not saying no to opportunities is what really led from one position to the next. I feel like I was always rewarded for just stepping in or stepping up and taking on the challenges that sometimes no one else wanted to do.
How do you mentor people and motivate them to accept challenges? And then maybe touch on, if you can, how has that changed, or has it changed in this hybrid work environment?
So for me, I think I probably fall more so in line of being a coach. Yes, I mentor folks as well, but I always felt like I was just kind of coaching. Maybe it goes back to the whole Delbert days, right? Where I believe that you have to be truthful with people. If they're not getting the job done, then sometimes they do need to be benched in a loving way, right? But nonetheless, I think what I've found over my career is that so many times we fail to tell people the truth because we're worried it's going to hurt their feelings, or we don't want to quote unquote have a difficult conversation or whatever. And I think that I used to say this all the time. I think it's the highest form of discrimination is when we assume people can't handle the truth. So we don't tell them the truth. And so for me, what I've always tried to do to motivate people is to have really honest conversations with them about the direction in which they want to go, but also try to be incredibly helpful for them. And to just kind of coach them through different situations, because at this age and this many years of experience, you can offer that to folks. And look, they can take it or leave it. It's not like they have to do it my way, but I think sometimes providing people a different perspective is all that they're really looking for. And then they can be off and running. Regarding the hybrid environment, I haven't really seen that much of a difference. Even when we were in the office, we were in so many meetings and doing so many things that often, a lot of times, our communication was by text in the evening, right? Like, hey, just catching up with you, how you doing? Or a phone call. I know I had one executive, she would call me almost every night when she was on the treadmill in the gym at like 9:00 at night. That was when we caught up on things. So, and yet our offices were side by side, but she was off in one direction, I was off in another direction. So I think that we've complicated this whole thing called hybrid. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to just having really good relationships with your colleagues and with those that work for you and those that you work with, and just staying in touch. I think that that's really what this is all about. It's about relationships. It's not about the physical location of an individual.
I think that is so smart. I was thinking back on pre-COVID. The truth is that I and a number of our leadership team, we weren't in the office anyway. And if we were traveling and doing different things, events, and then what you just said as well, your day is slammed back to back with meetings. So how is it different with a hybrid environment? Not much, really.
Yeah, I've not found it to be that much different. And people are like, well, you have to make this concerted effort to be in touch. I had to make a concerted effort to be in touch with people when I was in the office, right? Like, as you're running down the hall to jump in a car to go to the Hill to testify or whatever, you have about 2 seconds to say hi to somebody that's in the hallway. And so maybe sometimes then in the back seat of the car while I was on the way to the Hill, I might send them a note and just say, hey, so sorry, all I had was 2 seconds to say hi. Hope you're doing well. Heard you just got a new puppy. Is he behaving? That kind of thing. So you learn to manage your time and to use whatever little time that you have to connect with the people that you worked with. And then it goes with your personal relationships as well, right? Like, I don't see my mom every day. I don't see my kids every day. They're grown adults, yet we have a wonderful relationship. I'm not sure why we think somehow the work environment is any different. You either make an effort or you don't.
Angie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Shane. It's such a pleasure. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
This has been the Lessons in Leadership podcast. I'm CEO of WAEPA, Shane Canfield. Looking forward to talking to you next time.